In the world where rhythm meets leaf, where culture blends with revolution, one man plants the seeds of a movement. Meet Kenji, the master grower behind The Smoke, who turned a friendship into a legendary partnership with one of hip-hop's most influential groups, Cypress Hill. From the shadows of anonymity to the spotlight of advocacy, Kenji's journey is one of passion, dedication, and relentless pursuit of perfection.
To all the weed growers across the universe.
They were always in the studio, right? So we had it, and it was always in front of some other artists, right? Like Snoop or Redman, Method Man at that time. And we were playing in these places that had 80, 100,000, 300,000 people.
Welcome to Retro Tech. Stay tuned as we bring you the untold stories of Kenji, Cypress Hill, and the OG brand.
Saying OG. We were on tour 9 months out of the year, so we always had this shit that no one else had saw. It was like an alien when you pulled that out. People had never seen weed like that, you know, or smelled weed like that, or tasted weed like that. And yeah, so I'm born and raised right here in LA, San Fernando Valley. Born in Northridge and raised in like Granada Hills and Chatsworth, kind of like, you know, middle class community, man. You know, my father's Japanese, my mother is of Eastern European descent. You know, little mix of everything going on. You know,
Did you speak Japanese?
You know, I understand it a little bit. You know, most of it was getting yelled at by my dad. Yeah, that's what it was. Like, my dad was always like that one parent that all the friends are scared of but respected, right? It was I respect now the discipline that I got from it.
Well, that's awesome, dude. So when did you start to get into cannabis, and what was it like? What was the initial, I guess, introduction to it?
I mean, I got probably the first time I smoked weed I was like 15 years old, which, you know, roughly like 1989 or something like that, you know, junior high. You know, it was just my friends smoking weed on the block, you know. They were doing it for a couple years before, and I was super into the martial arts thing, and with this, you know, my dad was always like, no drugs or tattoos or you're dead, and I kind of like violated both those things. Yeah, it was like everything they told me not to do, I did. But, you know, respectfully, you know, it took, you know, the weed thing, it was, you know, started out like I'd smoke every couple months, and then it just went to, you know, every month, every week, to every day, just kind of like a lot of people.
And what were you like? What was kind of?
It was shit. Acapulco Gold was like one of the first ones that we were smoking, and it was literally, now that I think back, and even like this has been going on for a long time, but it was shit. You know, it was sticks and seeds, and you're lucky after you peeled out the little 20 bag or dime at that time that you actually got a joint out of the whole thing.
Absolutely. That's so crazy, dude.
And it was like that for a few years.
Right?
Canada, yeah, definitely Canada was starting to come down. That happened a little bit more mid-90s in a heavier, in heavier amounts, and that, you know, again, to a lot of the stuff that we saw here was some of the better weed.
Did you at all, did you ever write?
Yeah, no, man, I dabbled in that shit, but it just wasn't for me, you know.
I have a lot of friends that
I think at the time when everybody was tagging and writing, I was too high to be I was into like getting high and street racing. And cars,
so that was your like. I think you're like
being a nuisance on the road. Yeah, because that was the thing, right? Is even then, like back then, you're talking about like the early '90s, and you know, kind of like the graffiti crews. A lot of them turned into almost like gangbanging. People were getting killed all over the place. You know, it was like you had a starter jacket. Right? Don't fuck around and walk around with a Raider starter jacket. You might get killed for that $100 jacket, or crossing out a name or something like that. Right. Yeah, and I think, you know, at that time I was still training pretty heavy in martial arts. You know, B Real was involved in it. He trained with my father, so it was like, you know, we were busy. Like, okay, if you were in the studio, we were getting high, or training and getting high, and there was a whole lot of getting high. And then it was just you know, I think it was around I started hanging out with B Real. I met him in 1993.
Right when the good weed started.
Right when the good weed started happening. Yeah, so it was like good weed would happen, and you know, me and him would be driving around, and there was literally spots, because there wasn't dispensaries then, right? So it was like if you wanted to go buy the bag, it's like you had to pull up to the place that looked like the clothing shop and go in and ask for a certain thing, and with that you would get some good weed, right? Yeah, it was literally like that. And this store was on Melrose, right? So me and B would jump in the truck and we'd leave the valley and go out to Melrose, pull up to this truck, and it was like, I think it was like $100 sacks or something like that. That was all you could get, you know, $100 at a time. It was X amount of weed. You went to the shop and you went in there and you asked for this particular thing, and then you got that. And then it was like that for a few places until really the bombest weed that came out, and you know, roughly like 96 was OG. That changed everything for everybody, I think, in the valley. This was before the world knew about it, right? I mean, there was people obviously in Florida that knew about it, and the randoms here and there that did know about it. Yeah, I don't think it really got public until over here, because, you know, this thing, like, once it happened, I mean, and given this was $100 an eighth, you know, this was maybe you got 2.7 grams, 2.5, because everybody pinched it on the way over, right?
For real.
So you know, we bought these sacks, and you know, again, this was, you know, the original OG, Josh D and Matt Berger, and those guys that were the original cats that had it. And there was a couple out there that, you know, I don't think still care to be named, but you know, there was a very small crew of people that had access to this, because again, back then, your ass went to prison for growing weed, right? So these were, you're talking about 2, 3, and 4 light setups. So, you know, and maybe we're getting, you know, half a pound or 3/4 pound of light. We didn't really understand it, you know, or at that time they didn't, because I wasn't even really, I grew, but it was more like I planted it and I didn't really know what was going on. We all experimented, but once we saw that kind of process, we were like, okay, well, we really need to figure out how to grow weed, because this shit's way too expensive for us. We're some broke kids. I was like 20, well, I was probably like 22, something like that.
Be Real was
26 or something. Yeah, he's a few years older than me, but yeah, and then, you know, it's like, so like we started smoking on the OG, and then when we, you know, I got the Kush Bubba seeds. You know, everybody calls it Bubba Kush, but it was always like, even before Kush Bubba, it was, you know, there was like 3 females out of the 7 seeds that we got, and it was just K1, K2, K3, right? K1 was the best one. I killed it by accident. K2 became what we know as the Bubba Kush out there, yeah, and that kind of set me up as far as a cultivator or whatever. It really took a few years to develop those things. So yeah, we kind of all knew each other. There's a couple other cats that were involved, and again, I'm not going to take 100% credit for shit, because all of us had our respective crews, and everybody within those crews did a lot of damage out there, right? There was their own group of guys that we're all friends, but I'm just saying, like, Josh had his own group of people around. Mike did. Mike just happened to be the kind of a bridge in between, at the beginning, between Be Real and I, and then I had a whole other set of friends. And you know, at the same time, you know, to me, all those times while we were doing it, it was still hobby level, you know, because I was touring, you know what I mean, and people were still going to jail and all that, and I was like, fuck, man, as long as I can go make a paycheck, I could go see the world, I'm gonna do this. But we're also gonna do this on the side because we want to smoke this bomb weed, right? So a lot of us, you know, we built these things with our friends, you know, dude, you got an extra bedroom, let's set that up. You got a garage, let's set that up. And it just kind of went 1, 2, 3, and then next thing you know, everybody's growing fire, and the valley just smells like OG everywhere, you know, or Bubba. There wasn't any Bubba Kush. There was a strain called Bubba, and there was like OG, and then we got some beans, I think, from an accidental pollination, and then that's just what it was, right? There was Bubba, and then there was Kush, and we're like, Bubba Kush. We didn't, you know, the branding stuff was, we didn't really, you know too much about it. And roughly around that same time, we also were going to Europe, right? So we would bring back seeds from over there, because it was the first place where you actually walk into a shop and you're like, fuck, man, they got a menu that's got buds and bags of seeds, and you can pick the strains that you want, right? So it was like shit like Cali-O, which kind of was like the original Tangy that we saw back then. I mean, you're talking about 1996, you know, so and like Black Domina and White Rhino, White Russian. I mean, there was a shit ton of of genetics that we saw over the years, but the ones that definitely landed and still to this day, you know, the Bubba and the OG, you can't fuck with that. It's just, and you know, that was kind of like how it started, right? We learned the cloning techniques all off of that, and you know, Green Thumb song was kind of in 98, was, I think it maybe recorded in 97, but that's kind of like what that was all about, right? We literally blew the neighborhood up, loading, you know, 20 plus plants into this guy's garage with, you know, just lights and some hydro gear. We didn't know nothing about, or there wasn't even like carbon filters available or anything. When I don't think any of us had an idea of how strong that smell would actually be, considering it was only a handful of plants. Like we would pull up to the stop sign down the street from this guy's house and be like, fuck, man, dude, you're about to go to jail, bro. Like, this shit stinks, man.
That's funny.
You know,
that's what Aaron said too, that there was a carbon filter. Like they used the like the fabric or whatever.
Yeah, there's like fabric. There was a shit called Ona, and like a whole lot of like chicken manure or whatever manure, and none of that helped. It just smelled like shit and kush, you know, at the end of the day. And yeah, it was something so powerful and so different, and no one had really seen anything like this. So it just took off, and it changed a lot of our lives, you know. And I mean, we're still doing this a couple decades later. That was actually pretty difficult, man, because like the production, again, at that time, it's not like you could go and ask somebody how to grow weed, right? You go to the hydros. First of all, there wasn't even barely hydro shops to go buy equipment. There was a couple of them, but that's about it, right? A lot of our stuff that we built was out of hardware stores. Home Depot wasn't even a big thing over here yet. You couldn't go buy tables. You know, some people were still doing shit in dirt or whatever at that point. But yeah, we just kind of had to figure everything out. And you know, so while we did share basic recipes, still back then people were like a little bit reluctant to share or even talk about what they're doing because of the risks that were there. But you know, Josh and the very few people that were in that close circle, you know, we all kind of shared little trade secrets to try to better it. Again, we all wanted to smoke bomb weed, right? But in the beginning, those dudes only had a couple lights. So, you know, you get a harvest and then, you know, everybody gets like their little eighths or an ounce or something like that. And then it was gone for a few months. So, yeah, it was like you get it, you're hyped, and then bam, it's gone. You're like, fuck, man, that's like the best weed in the world. And everybody's like, that's the best weed in the world. I want to get some, I want to get some, I want to get some. And yeah, it just turned into something I don't think that any of us really expected, right? Like, we just wanted to smoke good weed, and it ended up turning into kind of like our careers and our life has been based around it, you know? I think, I mean, it became global. I mean, one, because we were smoking it while at the height of Cypress Hill, right? So they were always in the studio, right? So we had it, and it was always in front of some other artists, right? Like Snoop or Redman, Method Man at that time, and we were going on we were on tour 9 months out of the year, so we always had this shit that no one else had saw. It was like an alien when you pulled that out. People had never seen weed like that, you know, or smelled weed like that, or tasted weed like that. And you know, even still today, it's one of the most powerful things out there. A lot of people don't even want to smoke it because it gets them too fucking high, right? And it's also one of the first strains that was really branded, right? Before everybody's doing all their branding and calling names, different crews would call it different things because you would know that OG was from this, right? And when we got it, it wasn't even OG, it was Kush, right? Like the OG just differentiated it from Bubba or this other thing that this person would call Purple Kush or something. We had to call it original, right? This was the one that started everything and the hype, right? So yeah, I mean, it just, and still to this day, right? Everybody knows OG Kush. While there's a lot of other popular strains out there, I'm not gonna knock shit. Yeah. But I don't know if half these strains that are popular are gonna have the same life, you know, 25 years or 30 years later. I think in the beginning, when you can go look at a menu, we weren't like, oh, like I want a haze or I want an indica or a sativa. You're just like, fuck, man, there's like a menu with 25 different kinds of weed, and I need to figure out how to smoke all these. Yeah, and you're like, you know, and then I want some seeds to take home. Yeah, to try to grow it ourselves. So Yeah, it was super interesting times back then, and still right now it's still like it hasn't really changed. Yeah, there's strains, but every so often you come across those ones and you're like, fuck, man, this is the shit. Be real. Yeah. I mean, that was the thing though. It was actually at the point where he was already blowing up. I mean, because we're going to Europe and doing shows at these festivals that, and the European, I don't know if you've been to a festival out there or you've seen them, but they shit on any kind of festival that goes around here, like Coachella and those kind of things are like the small festivals over there. They've been doing those kind of things for 50 years plus, 60 years. They've been doing those giant festivals. So between like the bigger clubs and arenas, we were playing in these places that had 80, 100,000, 300,000 people, and it was just until you see it, you can't really grasp the scale of it. But even if you're backstage and in a place like 100,000 like venue, or not venue, it'd be like a farm somewhere where they set up these things, there'd be 100 different artists back there and people, and everybody's blazing this weed, and we were smuggling weed, not technically, we were bringing our own weed into these places, and no one had seen that. And even then in Europe, they weren't really down with the full flower. I think even to this day, it was still like tobacco, mostly tobacco with a little bit of weed. But we were the greedy Americans because we would just roll full joints and just everybody blazing, clouds everywhere, coughing, choking, and we were just greedy with it, I guess. I don't know. That's just how it was. Yeah. Like Amsterdam, they had like a 5 gram limit or something. So you would normally see 4 or 5 guys go in there, and they'd all go in, they'd all buy their 1 gram sack and then break it up, and that would be shared between 5 or 10 joints. And here we are like, I want one of those, and each one of us would buy 5 grams, and everybody would roll a joint, and it would just be, let's try this flavor, and like the guy, like Yoa and Aryan over there at the greenhouse, we got really close with those guys, and it was just, we had our home base out there to go smoke a lot of weed and check out the new shit that's going on and figure out how to go stock up before we were anywhere else in Europe. Amsterdam would be the spot to go. Let's go start the tour there so we could load up. And then at the same time, let's bring our weed, and but at the same time, like those guys, they like the aces and those kind of things over there. So like things like the OG and the Bubba were, those things just, they really did change the game for us and a lot of people around the world, it seems.
The Dr. Green Thumb brand, when was it like officially sold, your first?
Like, that's been under the works for a long time, probably 2013 or something like that. Right when I think they were trying to go open dispensaries in the Orange County area, B's old partner, they were working on trying to get some dispensaries going open, and just legalization and all that permitting and everything was so fucked up back then. It just never really materialized. There was the name, they like, again, it was Dr. Green Thumb was always like the one that we wanted to put out there, but officially as a dispensary, it happened in 2018. Yeah, right when it really started happening here in Los Angeles, and then at that same time we launched the Insane brand.
Insane OG.
As like that upper level, because there wasn't flower under the Dr. Green Thumb at that point. It was just a dispensary, and it was Insane. Insane is always like, we've always been about the high line. That's how we wanted to keep it, and we only just really in the last maybe 2 years put out the Dr. Green Thumb branded flower.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's super cool. I mean, it's like, I feel like in a lot of ways you guys are just kind of getting going, right? Not to say that, like, but I'm saying like within this confines of like this new legal structure, and like,
yeah, it's a very difficult space to navigate. I think that a lot of people have this thought that, oh, you could just put up this dispensary and all of a sudden you're going to sell a shit ton of weed, or you're going to grow some weed and you could just put it in a bag or a jar and you're going to sell a bunch of weed. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't matter how fire the weed is or what it looks like or any of that, right? There has to be the ability to reach the people, right? And I think for us, it's always been a part of the experience, right? It's just not weed, it's music, right? Even we started Be Real TV, you know, like 2008, really. We started doing podcasts and stuff like that, right? We called it the giggle stick, which was just like pressed water hash, right? And then we would roll the flour into that, so that hash would be the paper, right? And we were doing that in 2000. I mean, we were doing it before 2008. We were doing that in the 90s, but the first time we put it on video was like 2008. And then now there's companies that are, you know, claiming they have the first hash wrap. No, that's not true. You know, we did it way back. You guys are late, straight up, like that. But we just didn't publicly make it a product because at that time there wasn't products like that. Now you have the ability to do all these things. So, you know, and we've just gone through the space of, you know, let's get licenses, right? We're not the brand that necessarily white labels everything. In some cities or states where we're at, we do that because we don't have active on the ground cultivation, but we literally go to these places and we make sure that we are all on the same page with the cultivators. We bring strains, genetics, you know, SOPs in some places, and you know, it's just a difficult space to navigate. Always, you know, there's always something going on, but we are active. I don't sit there and say, hey, you guys take care of this, and I'm just gonna sit back and think and call this brand ours. Like, no, that's one thing, right? That Dr. Green Thumb brand is going to be Dr. Green Thumb brand. Insane is going to be insane, and we produce a lot of flower, and we got to do a lot of our own projects over here just to pay bills. So, you know, yeah. I mean, I kind of consider myself, I'm still a student of the game. You know, I can't stand the term master grower or master of anything, and especially in this space because it's always changing. We're always learning. You know, there's cats that are young that I'm like, okay, well, shit, man, that looks like crazy. What are you doing? You know, in the same way, I'm always willing to share whatever kind of information, just because if we don't collectively come together and talk about certain things and figure out how to do certain shit, like our time is limited, right? When the big money really comes in, because it's coming, but it's not really coming, a lot of places they're not going to be here, you know, and I think that was one of my like kind of fears in the space of not being able to control our own flow and our own destiny, right? I don't want to be this guy that's depending on this grow to grow my weed and this distro to distribute it and package it. We experienced all that and got fucked, you know. So it's taken a lot of years to get to this point. You know, we have some new projects that are coming out that are really, you know, I think going to be targeting and based around the culture and providing the experience for people. The flower is there, right? There's a ton of good flower, right? We do it. There's a lot of other cats out there that are doing it, and I think it's just providing, like, you know, the safe space to get it, consume it. Let's do this, or the knowledge. How do you grow it, or what are you growing it with, or, you know, marketing type shit. How do we get there, right? Because so many people put it on IG, boom, 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 done. Like I put posts up when we launched the store on Saturday in Fresno, and 5 minutes later it was getting taken down, you know, for violating, you know, the agreements. And all I did was say the lithium drop, and that shit got deleted.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know, so we can't necessarily depend on social media to do our things, right? Everything that we've done was before social media. It was word of mouth. It was the experiences that people had, not only with our flower, but what came with the group that we associated with, right? Whether it be events or music or sports or any of these other things where, you know, cannabis is a centerpiece of it, but there's so many other things that kind of go around that create like that, what people call the lifestyle.
Yeah, there's the music, and it's people try to attempt this, but there's really only very few.
No, right? Because I think some of these people.
Craft service.
Thank you, brother. I think a lot of these people out here, you know, they experience certain things, and there's a lot of guys out there now that, you know, I really appreciate the fact that the places where they go to make some of these events happen, right? Traditionally, a lot of those events, you know, you spend all this money to put it together, and you can't get people to draw, so guess what? You lose money, right? But there's some people out there where now it's like you have these event spaces where, okay, cool, well, I can smoke anywhere, but I'm gonna go there and I want to smoke there because I know so and so is going to be there, so and so is going to be there. This product's going to be featured there. I want to go see it, and I just want to network. You know, and that's a very important thing in this space, right? Your network is your net worth, right? Which is what they say, and that shit's the truth, right? Because money doesn't get you everywhere in this space.
No, that definitely is true.
You know what I mean? And you see that a lot with the corporate money that comes in, right? Let's all get like these fucking CEOs and executives and all this other shit, and then where's the money, right? It's all in paychecks to other people, right? Or it's all in this other shit that has nothing to do with the weed or the experiences, or they're trying to figure out how to, you know, like going too fast, you know, and
I would say like, right, you gotta be scrappy. You gotta like you gotta figure out different ways to win. Like,
you gotta have tenacity, and you can't get discouraged by this, right? A lot of people, they lose or they take that first big ass L, and then they quit. That's it, right? I'm done. Fuck that. I can't do that. I mean, we've been taking L's. We've been on this roller coaster for 3 decades. All the shit that's happening on the industry. Oh, people, I don't know why we can't sell weed at the end of the year through spring. Like, dude, this shit's been like this for years. It's nothing new to us.
It's passion,
right?
The only thing that's kept you going. That's how you know you have true passion.
Passion and a little bit of craziness for staying here and putting ourselves and our families through all this shit.
But it's crazy, right?
You know, at the end of the day, we're not going to go anywhere because we really do live this life. You know, we're at the studio still every day. We still create every day. We're still either at the grow or like right here where, you know, y'all are going to see this Blue House experience happen and come to life. You know, our own distribution and control of our own product from the cultivation to the retail. That's important for us because we want to present it how we want to present it. We don't want to leave that up to somebody else.
100%. It's so funny. I think everyone's starting to realize that. I think it's, you got to be hyper control of it, and you got to know every aspect of it.
Yeah, you really do got to control it, right? I try not to call myself a control freak, but I am, in the sense of I care about the quality, and more importantly, I care more about the experience that somebody has with the product, right? And I've learned to take constructive criticism a lot better, right? Like I would rather have somebody tell me, yo, this strain is not that, because I would rather just go over to that mother and kill that shit and save some space for newer things.
You don't want a yes man around you, dude. That's not the same thing. That's like long-term hurtful, dude.
No, that's one good thing about our crew, is that we've always been pretty open, good or bad. We say it and we deal with it however we need to deal about it. Sometimes it's an argument, sometimes it's not, but at the end of the day, you know, all of us have been doing this a long time. You know, there's a lot of years of experience that go on with this. So, you know, I value the opinion of everybody around. So respectively, we all listen. Oh, what's going on, or what should we do, or what do you think we should do? And I think, you know, it took a few years to get over like egos and things, right? Because, you know, you look at the beginning of OG, that shit was $8,000 a pound, man. You know, for a lot of years, 8,000, then like high 7, and then, you know, here we are where it's not that. You know, those kind of monies aren't realistic anymore, right? There's a lot more work that has to be done to sell the weed, right? Versus like, I'm gonna get prepaid for whatever these pounds are and I'm good for the rest of the year, or whatever it is. That's not the case anymore, right? Bills are more expensive, properties are more expensive, weed prices are not great. You know, there's a whole lot more competition or people doing it. So now it's just a battle of, okay, well, you got good product. There's a lot of good product out there. How do we get it out there? How do we let people experience this? How can we provide not only the best quality flowers of whatever level, but also make it more special, right? Like, this isn't going to be just some stuff that we get in a Mylar bag and give a t-shirt and, hey, here we go, here's a brand. That's not a brand to me. Anybody could do that. How do we give this as an experience where somebody is going to be happy with the flower and happy with the experience, but want to keep on coming back, right? Because any of these, like, there's a lot of celebrity brands that come out there. Oh, cool, this guy, you know, he's worth $1 billion or whatever. He's won this championship, but like, you put his shit in the flower or in a bag, and somebody's gonna come buy it once, and then they don't come back. I don't want that. That's not special to me. I want that person to repeatedly come back maybe drop all these things as capsules where there's a lot more involvement. There's an event, there's product, and there's something that's gonna, you know, make these people or consumers that support us feel special. We want them to feel special. We want to take care of them. We want to make sure that they have good experiences no matter what brand it is. That ethos remains the same with anything that I'm involved, right? Dr. Green Thumb or Insane, or it all has to be a good experience for the end user. And you know, I'm a fan of a lot of the guys out there. I want to work with them. That's why we have these things, so we can do these joint projects or these collaborations. And now we don't have to go to all these parties. We can kind of do it in-house, right? Because if I'm a cultivator of it, or they are a cultivator of it, or we're the manufacturer, the distributor, or we use them, no matter what, we can control the product all the way to the end. So that person, it's never in the hands of somebody that's not outside the circle.
Yeah, doesn't care as much.
And doesn't care, or hey, this is just another product, let's just toss this to the side. No, I care. I even care like how that label is put on there, right? Like, don't let that shit be crooked. I can't do that. I got OCD like crazy. So, you know, those things just have to be controlled in a certain environment. And I think we all think the same. Sometimes we almost do too much quality control or overthink some things to where we won't release something because something is wrong, right? And to me, that's okay, because we can do that. I'm not on a time constraint or somebody else's schedule. We do it when we're ready and when we think it's ready, so that the people out there can.
I think it's really a balance too, though. I think you're right. I think you want to make sure you got it right, but I also think you want to then put whatever you're doing out there to then let the market refine it. Because I think the way that you really reach perfection is through the constant feedback, the constant failure.
I've seen that a lot, and I'm trying to be a little bit more aware of that. Like, once we get up to what, you know, we have a good quality, because literally if we say go find a new pheno now, we just go to the studio, I jar up 20, 30 jars, whatever it is. I take it to the guys over there roll it, and literally everybody has a joint of a different flavor, and it might be a 16 joint day in a row, or not. Maybe it takes a couple days to get through that, but let's all write it down. Flavor, high, looks, all that kind of shit. And we, as a group, kind of figure out like, okay, this is a good one, this is not a good one. And even outside of that, jars, here, try this, let me know what you think. And
you ever do that on the I'm sure you guys do, I mean, daily, right? But on Be Real TV, like
we have before where we made it like an element of that.
Yeah, an element. It wasn't like full.
But we'll definitely roll it, and they'll smoke it on the shows, and then kind of everybody gets their little ration before the show, so they're smoking on it, and they'll test it. A lot of that stuff we do before the show. I think in the future those kind of things. I mean, we've done it before, and just got distracted with all the other things that going on between, say, Smokebox and Dr. Green Thumb show. And,
Sorry about that. At the time of the recording, our SD card actually ran out and we weren't able to finish up the interview. But we will be having some more content coming out with Kenji here in the future. You can bet that. I want to say big shouts out to Kenji for sitting down with us. He's an absolute legend. He plays a major role in the proliferation of OG. Obviously with him in Cypress Hill, with him in Be Real. People like Kenji, they sacrificed, they put their freedom on the line, and they did a lot of things that have helped proliferate the culture forward. So can't tell him thank you enough. If you guys have not joined our new exclusive platform, the High Design platform, you definitely need to go and check it out. It's going to have exclusive content coming out weekly that's only going to be on that platform. You can also sign up for free, and there's also some other paid subscription packages as well. But guys, please go support. It means a lot. It'll go a long way. So go to highdesign.media and go sign up today. If you guys enjoyed this episode of Retro Tech, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, comment down below. Make sure to follow us on all the YouTube channels, by the way. We have the LMC channel, we have the Retro Tech channel, we have the LMC THC channel, we also have the High Design channel. Go make sure you subscribe to all those channels just in case, one of them goes down. God forbid. Also, make sure to follow us on all the social medias. The links are down below in the description. Anyways, this is LMC, signing out.